Need a break before finals? There is a recreational and semi-wilderness getaway practically in your backyard. Tilden Park, twice as large as Golden Gate Park, is located in the hills above the university and is easier to get to than ever before. The AC Transit began a pilot program of bus service to the park. This bus service, which is to run until Labor Day in September, stops at various locations in Tilden's 2,065-acre area. And once you get there, you can forget all about finals with the variety of activities the park has to offer. One of the most popular spots in the park is Lake Anza, which an estimated 180,000 persons have enjoyed. Swimming and fishing are permitted, and there is a sandy beach for those who want to work on their suntans. Wildcat Creek, which feeds into Lake Anza, meanders through the center of the park. Because part of the creek is hidden by undergrowth, it is fun to explore. Photography buffs can spend hours at Tilden, with its variety of landscape. Within the park are two of the highest peaks in the East Bay Hills, Volmer Peak at 1,930 feet at the southern tip of the park, and Wildcat Peak 1,250 feet in the northern sector. In between the peaks are rolling hills, meadowlands, eucalyptus groves, other forested areas, the lakes, and the creek. A variety of activities for children are also provided. One is the Little Farm, set in a rural layout dominated by a little red barn. The farm has a variety of birds and beasts, such as chickens, rabbits, sheep, goat, peacocks, and the fawn, and it is free. So, when you are tired of studying, searching for a job, and looking at the walls of your humble abode this summer, Tilden Park may have something to offer you. Whether that be Lake Anza, the Little Farm, or just some virgin grassy space and tall trees, come find refuge at Tilden Park. The park was created by a group of individuals trying to protect the East Bay's natural beauty in a time of fast metropolitan growth. They saw a future without preserved parklands and sought to change that. In the original 1930 proposed park reservations plan, the desire for a park was expressed. The charm of the region as a place in which to live will depend largely upon natural conditions that are destined to disappear unless properly protected for the public in general. The opportunities for enjoyment of out-of-door life are necessarily doomed to be reduced or destroyed with the increase in population at the very time that the need will be most urgent. With the growth of a great metropolis here, the absence of parks will make living conditions less and less attractive, less and less wholesome. Insofar, therefore, as the people fail to show the understanding, courage, and organizing ability necessary to grasp the present opportunity, the growth of the region will necessarily tend to choke itself. When first established, the area that is now called Tilden Park went by the name Wildcat Canyon Park. 6 years after its creation, the park was renamed to fit its current title. In years to come, the East Bay cities will be noted for their woodland hills and friendly glades, where hushed is the tumult of living, and vanished are the feelings of care. To have acquired this beautiful hillland park, where nature has been so generous, is the most progressive step that the East Bay cities have ever taken for human welfare. I therefore take great pleasure in dedicating the park and Wildcat Canyon to Major Tilden, who has rendered such splendid service in acquiring this park, and to his grandson, who was born on Major Tilden's 80th birthday. Once uttered, these very words began an era that would bring meaning and memories to generations of East Bay residents. Next to the Little Farm and Tilden Nature Area lies one of Tilden's hidden beauties. Jewel Lake was one of the first installments in Tilden Park, and has been home to many memories since. One of the most memorable was when literally hundreds of bullfrogs were released into these local waters by well-meaning but misguided people. Naturalist Linda Yamoto and Evelyn Sequin were getting ready to close the Tilden Park Nature Center when a jogger came in and told them he had just passed a group of about 30 people heading up the path toward Jewel Lake. That was unusual enough, given that it was early January and starting to get dark. But what really grabbed Yamato and Sequin's attention was the jogger's assertion that the people had been carrying cardboard boxes that appeared to be filled with turtles and frogs. "We jumped in our pickup truck and zoomed down there," recalls Sequin. "When they got to the lake, they found a group of Chinese Buddhists celebrating the Lunar New Year. As part of the ceremony, they were releasing the creatures, which they had bought in Chinatown food stores, into the lake. According to traditional practice, they were saving the animals, which otherwise would have been cooked and eaten, by letting them go in the wild. The naturalists didn't quite see things that way. The turtles were still in their boxes, but the frogs had already gotten into the water, and the two had no choice but to get wet. Fortunately, most of the frogs seemed to be dazed by the experience, or maybe dazzled by their good fortune, and didn't try to get away. We could just pick up dozens and dozens of them," says Yamato. Later, they recruited friends and boats and went bullfrogging until the wee hours of the morning, putting the amphibians back into the cardboard boxes. They caught between 180 and 190 frogs. "But," says Sequin, "every now and then I still see some." The naturalists emphasize that the folks releasing the frogs and turtles thought they were doing the animals a favor. What they didn't realize is the harm the frogs could have caused to the lake's other denizens. Bullfrogs are very aggressive as frogs go, with a tremendous appetite for the young of other species, especially the tadpoles of native frogs, Yamato says. To a lot of people, a frog is a frog, and frogs live in ponds. A large part of the preserved natural beauty of Tilden are the trees. Species ranging from eucalyptus to redwood adorn its trails and its hills. Over the years, tens of thousands of trees have grown and died, but a few in particular have stood out as special. A tree worthy of Dante's earthly paradise, in fact, one which grew from the seed of a stately redwood at the poet's grave in Ravenna, Italy, is rooted now in Tilden Regional Park. It stands in the memorial grove of the Norwell Gillespie Youth Camp area. The famed East Bay moon tree, the coast redwood, whose seed made the 500,000-mile round trip to the moon aboard Apollo 14, is flourishing at the Environmental Education Center in Tilden Regional Park in Berkeley. Taking over personal care of the much-traveled oddity has been Center Secretary Jeanette Rotham, who confides that the secret of success in raising the moon tree is daily chatter and frequent songfests. Moon River, in particular, sets its branches moving, Jeanette reports. Seeds harvested from a stand of rare Santa Lucia fir trees in Berkeley's Tilden Park have been collected to replace the native Santa Lucias killed in the recent Los Padres National Forest fire along the Big Sur coastline. The species is ranked as the world's rarest fir, as only about 10,000 survive today. It is estimated that the Tilden Park cones will yield enough seeds to raise 40,000 new trees. Now, with every experience, there are the good and the bad. As there are beautiful trees, there are also forest fires. And as there are people who want to plant those trees, there are people who want to see them burn. Weary firefighters battled a 5-acre grass fire of suspicious origin early today in Tilden Park. It was the 18th fire believed to have been set since last weekend in Tilden and Wildcat Canyon parks. A spokesman said the fire was set deliberately, as evidence of road flares was found at the scene. Over the weekend, 17 blazes were apparently set in Wildcat Canyon in Tilden Park. They scorched an estimated 320 acres of cattle grazing fields. A fire, apparently the work of an arsonist, lit up the East Bay skies as it ripped through nearly 50 acres of brush on the east side of Wildcat Canyon in Tilden Park, before being brought under control earlier today. Fire officials said 4 separate blazes quickly merged into a much larger fire that sent billows of smoke from the area. More than 90 firefighters and 30 pieces of firefighting equipment fought the blaze, which was inaccessible to fire trucks. Firefighters had to use bulldozers to reach the flames. Local fire officials suspect an arsonist of setting off 3 separate fires which raged Saturday morning through Tilden Regional Park in the Berkeley Hills. Wilson, an East Bay fire officer who was among the first on the scene, said Tilden's land has been at the whim of arsonists for nearly the past 10 years, and that the park has been ravaged by about 4 fires a year. Rabbits don't just burst into flames, he said. They don't self-combust. While no arson suspect has been fingered, the park's police department and the California Department of Forestry are investigating the case. Tilden Park would not be here today were it not for the innovative minds who petitioned for improvements and additions to the park. Lake Anza, the Little Farm, the Redwood Valley steam trains, and Tilden Golf Course are all well-known and popular attractions at Tilden. They draw families, couples, and normal people looking to have a fun time on a sunny day. There were, however, many proposals that were not carried out and will forever lie as a footnote to the Tilden story. This is a chapter where these footnotes can be given their moment of glory and pose the question, what would Tilden be like had these facilities existed? Wildlife and plant life are the chief concerns of people who came before the East Bay Regional Park District staff last night in a hearing on the future of Tilden Park. The district planning staff called the meeting to get public testimony for the preparation of a land use plan for Tilden, an environmental impact report on 2 proposals for the old golf driving range. On that site, just inside Tilden's western border, the Berkeley Shakespeare Festival wants to build a $300,000 to $400,000 550-seat amphitheater, while the California Native Plant Society wants to put a growing ground there for native plants. Dan Lutton, chairman of Friends of the Earth, was applauded when he urged the park staff to block any more urban cultural activities in the park. I do not object to Shakespeare, but Shakespeare is not a park activity, said Lutton. Tilden Park is the district's oldest and most used park, and has the most recreational facilities. Elizabeth Siegel, who lives a half-mile from Tilden, said, "A mixed-use park is one of the greatest things we have. I don't see any incompatibility between the park and an amphitheater." Siegel said those who would return Tilden to its pristine state are unrepresentative of those who actually use it. In the end, the golf course driving range remained opened and is still there today. During the 1960s, the United States government built a Nike missile base along the ridges of Tilden. Records of the base are scarce, and all that is known is that the base was disarmed and abandoned in the early 70s, where it lay barren for some years before being mostly destroyed and buried. In the interim, however, there was a proposal for its rehabilitation. The abandoned missile site in Tilden Park is being sought by a Berkeley group for a community drug treatment center. Only the signature of the commanding officer at the Presidio in San Francisco stands in the way today of establishing a bridge over troubled waters drug user rehabilitation facility at the defunct Nike missile base in Tilden Park. But Colonel Fellows has refused to talk to either the founder, Mr. Goldberg, or bridge board members. As the Nike missile base is abandoned and run down, Goldberg feels the Army is giving Bridge the runaround. There is no record of Bridge over Troubled Waters Drug Rehabilitation Center existing in Tilden Park or anywhere else today. There are, however, leftover cement fragments from the base scattered across Tilden and neighboring Wildcat Canyon Park. You can usually find them on the tops of mountains or in large open areas. In 1979, Tilden came extremely close to creating a frisbee disc golf course. Victor Malfronte, who has earned 10 World Frisbee Disc throwing titles in International Frisbee Disc Association competitions, calls Berkeley the Mecca of Frisbee. Today he is trying to gain final approval for an 18-hole Frisbee golf course in Berkeley's Tilden Regional Park. The East Bay Regional Parks District Board was expected to give final approval for a proposed Frisbee disc golf course in Tilden Regional Park at its meeting today. Louis Kretcher, Chief of Planning and Design for the district, said Malfronte first approached the board with a project 2 years ago. The board postponed a decision then, he said, because it questioned whether Mineral Springs was the right site for the course, and whether it had sufficient parking. It seems like Malfronte's vision for a Tilden Frisbee golf course would soon come to fruition, until last-minute requests from citizen groups and its own Parks Advisory Committee have forced the East Bay Regional Parks District Board to consider alternatives to Tilden Regional Park for a proposed Frisbee golf course. Though the exact argument of those opposed to the development is unavailable, it most likely had to do with keeping Tilden in its natural state. In fact, a common thread through these lost proposals is the tension between people who want a developed Tilden and those who do not. Tilden Park would not have become the bustling landmark it is today, were it not for those who sought to build upon it. At the same time, the park would not have retained its full natural beauty had people not sought to keep the natural park intact. The story of James Roof is one where these two sides go head-to-head and conflicts arise. James Roof designed the Tilden Botanic Gardens and was its director for 38 years until the district retired him at age 65 in August 1976. Roof says the retirement by the board of the East Bay Regional Park District was illegal. He says he was and still is in perfect health, and says the district official retirement age has always been 70. Moreover, Roof says his retirement was politically motivated, the result of a long philosophical split between himself and some park district officials. Roof's tart tongue and his refusal to compromise with the park district directors and general managers who did not share his views have caused some bad blood between him and the district over the years. Roof said animosity has long existed between natural park people, like himself, whose chief desire is to preserve native plant life in as pristine a state as possible, and recreation people, who want to develop park lands into recreational facilities. Roof has never made any secret of his disdain for district officials, including 2 past general managers. He says they were merely putting in their time or acting against the park's best interests. Quite a pack of scoundrels, he calls them. When the park district groundskeepers went on strike in 1975, Roof sympathized with the strikers. I was illegally fired for participation in the strike, to set an example of what happens to people who aren't loyal to management, Roof says. Park district officials, however, have said there was no political motive for Roof's retirement, and that employees are routinely retired at 65. On the other hand, Wanda McClellan, Roof's niece and an ally in his legal battles, said she had been told by a park official that the East Bay Regional Park District's official retirement age was in fact 70. She said some people have worked for the district until they were in their 80s. Roof and Miss McClellan are convinced that Roof was replaced for his labor sympathies during the strike. Roof, whose mood might be described as hopeful but realistic, said he knew some district officials wanted him out. They know I know where all the bodies are buried, he said. While small in numbers, the terrible events that happen in Tilden also happen to be the ones that make the most lasting memories. A mysterious series of unexplained animal deaths in Tilden Park has sparked an investigation by members of the park security force. In recent weeks, at least 6 to 8 raccoons and opossums, half a dozen deer, 3 cats, and 3 house dogs have been found dead for no apparent reason in the park. Maintenance men have been uncovering the wild animals, with no traces of bruises, abrasions, lacerations, or other indicators of unnatural deaths in the past 2 weeks. Park authorities are investigating and guess the park animals were either poisoned or contracted some contagious disease, but refuse to speculate on the cause of deaths, pending a full-scale investigation. They said packs of dogs commonly maraud deer and other animals, but the lack of explanation for the recent deaths and the unusual numbers have generated the alarm. Free-running dog packs have killed 8 deer and other animals in Tilden Park near Berkeley and Kensington in the last year. Deer have been chewed to death and been killed by shock. Additionally, chickens and ducks in the little farm have been killed by dogs, which even attacked sheep in a pet burrow there. Forget the redcoats, the yellow jackets are coming. After a frenzied swarm of the insects at Tilden Park sent 21 children, 3 adults, and 1 unlucky dog to hospitals Friday, experts warned that the Bay Area could be in for yellow jacket invasion this summer. Officials at Tilden Park exterminated a nest containing more than 15,000 of the highly territorial insects Friday after they attacked 2 groups of children from elementary schools in El Sobrante and San Pablo. But even with 15,000 fewer yellow jackets, there are untold millions left in Bay Area parks and backyards, just waiting to invade your picnic, crawl under your shirt, or hide in your soda can. 3 10-week-old piglets, the latest star attractions at the popular little farm in Tilden, were stolen from their pen this week, and trails of blood raised fears that they were killed. The little farmer, Mr. Ward, believes it took at least 2 strong men to seize the struggling pigs, and that they were probably going to barbecue the animals. Each pig weighed about 50 pounds and would have sold for about $50 at a hog auction, he said. They all had their throats slit, he said, basing his conclusion on blood found leading from the pen to the parking lot on both occasions. The mother was bashed in the nose and hit on the head, which is exactly the way you want to stop a charging pig, he said. A twin-engine light plane crashed between the 12th and the 13th holes of the Tilden Park golf course Saturday, killing its pilot. Witnesses said the small Cessna was heading northeast over the golf course around 3:35 p.m. when it suddenly made a 90-degree right turn and nosedived into the trees bordering the fairway. The plane exploded on impact. The man who died when his plane crashed Saturday near the golf course in Tilden has been tentatively identified as Joel Cantor, 40, a physician from Kentfield, the Contra Costa coroner's office reported today. Officers said the body of Cantor, who is believed to have taken off from San Jose Airport, was badly mangled. This delayed identification of the victim. A man and a young woman were listed in serious condition yesterday at Herrick Memorial Hospital after being hacked repeatedly with a machete by 2 men in Tilden Park. The pair had just slipped into sleeping bags in their car parked by Watson Tower about midnight Saturday when another car approached. Blinded by the lights, they were routed out of their car by 2 black men and told to place their hands on the hood of the car, they told the authorities. At that point, without warning or apparent motive, one of the 2 men began to hack the hell out of them with a machete wielded from behind. The 2 men fled as the couple managed to stagger up to Grizzly Peak Boulevard, where a passing motorist took them to Herrick shortly after midnight. The couple was visiting national parks across the country and had come to spend the night in Tilden Park, they said. To make Tilden the place it is today, a special group of park rangers have dedicated countless years to protect, preserve, and enhance the experience of others at the park. The following are 2 interviews with important park rangers as they reflect upon their time in Tilden. Walking trails in Tilden Regional Park with Alan Kaplan is like looking through a living scrapbook of his career as a naturalist. The Pack Rat Trail has been my favorite since I came back in the 80s, he says. It's changed somewhat, but remarkably very little. I remember walking under these same trees 25 years ago. The details large and small are what have made a walk with Kaplan an educational and entertaining experience, as he mixes regional lore, natural history, natural science, doses of humor, and quotes from philosophers in an easygoing manner. Even experienced trail users can come away with something they didn't know before. In his time at Tilden, he has grown close not only to his surroundings, but to the rest of the park staff. This is as much as a family as I've ever had, he says. I lived with my family of origin for 22 years. I've been with these people here longer than I ever was with my family. We've grown up together, seen marriages, divorces, deaths, watched children grow up. When I went back to the Bronx high school reunion, I saw doctors, I saw accountants, I saw lawyers, and they all came up to me and said, "Wow, you're a park ranger? That's a great job." Retiring this year, Gordon is a man who thinks every place needs its own mythology. So when heavy eucalyptus branches rub together in the woods, groaning in the distance like rusty hinges on an old barn gate, Gordon says that's the door to the forest. Halfway up one trail, there's a big, thick tree, wearing years of lovers' initials. Gordon tells his tale of the sweetheart tree. When you pass by, you're supposed to hug it and whisper the name of the person you want to marry. "I love this place," he says. He speaks those words often, "this place," and gazes up at the trees. He looks at everything lovingly, lingering on treasures. And I've loved this place. Where else can you have a job where you can watch kids grow up, have them come back over the years as 30 and 40-year-olds, and say they remember the things I showed them? I feel truly blessed. And that's why this place is so important, he says, looking again at Tilden's bounty of trees. We take good care of this place. Even if we didn't say anything to the people who come on tours, the environment itself teaches. It is important for this to be here. 50 years ago, people came to the park with one understanding. They would have grown up around animals, like I did. Now people come to our little farm in the park, and the kids can't believe our food comes from these animals. We've lost that connection to the natural world. Gordon's favorite place in all of this place is up the Loop Road and along the Laurel Canyon Trail. He trudges along up the hill and stops on a knoll under the great awning of leaves dotted with diamonds of sun. Dark twisted branches reach down to the ground. Okay, see those two enormous trees, the bay tree and the enormous oak at the top of the hill there, he says? It's like the big trees are an island. They're surrounded by all of these thin, much younger trees. I think there was a really hot fire here 300 or 400 years ago, and those survived. He looks out to the horizon, listens to the sound of quiet. I love the feeling of it being limitless out here, always an adventure. Of course, you've got to watch out for that poison oak, but the beauty, the quietude, it does something strange to time. I try to teach the kids how to expand time. If you're looking, listening, involved, just a few minutes feels like you've been there forever. For me, all of this is like going back to my childhood every day. Nature is really just a magical place to be.